Now, from CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede. Later in the show, we will discuss the latest condo bill out of Tallahassee that might bring some relief for condo owners facing large assessments. But I want to start by talking about Social Security. Every week, I get calls and emails from individuals who are worried about what the Trump administration and Elon Musk are doing about Social Security, as well as Medicare and Medicaid. And I understand that concern. Here's Trump's Commerce Secretary, billionaire Howard Lutnick.
Let's say Social Security didn't send out their checks this month. My mother-in-law, who's 94, she wouldn't call and complain. She just wouldn't. She'd think something got messed up, and she'll get it next month. A fraudster always makes the loudest noise, screaming, yelling, and complaining.
What Lutnick said is part of a larger case that Trump and Musk have tried to make, that Social Security is rife with fraud, that there are 150-year-old people collecting checks, and so the system needs to be reformed. But it's simply not true. So why do they say it? Well, in part, they want to justify what comes next. So I want to take some time this morning focusing on Social Security, because in the coming weeks, you're going to hear a lot about it. And here's a hint. Anytime you hear Donald Trump talk about his big, beautiful tax bill, you should realize he's also talking about Social Security. This week, I spoke to Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
What they're doing now is they are trying to break Social Security, it's apparent, through the back door. You know, letting Musk and Doge rummage through people's private, personal Social Security data, their personal information, the dismantling technologically that they are engaged in through the technological backbone of Social Security is causing really serious problems for seniors to access the system. They also changed the rules for when you can use the call center versus when you have to actually go in for an appointment. And on top of that, so more people, many more people now, in order to get a problem resolved or a question answered with Social Security, have to go into an office. Getting an appointment at an office, because they have fired thousands of Social Security employees and closed regional offices across the country, and they are planning to fire more people. I think up to 40 to maybe 50% of Social Security employees are going to be terminated. So people are having to travel much further distances if they have to go into a Social Security office. They're having trouble getting an appointment, and if they are calling on the helpline, it takes at least 3 hours to get somebody to answer. And I know that because my office staff tested it, waited 3 hours and 11 minutes. And I had people join me the other day who talked about the hours that they waited on the phone. And because they are messing around with the system hangs up on you a lot, even after you've waited that long.
Let's talk about the benefits themselves. Are there any plans that you're aware of to cut Social Security benefits that individual will receive? Any talk of raising the minimum retirement age to be able to qualify for Social Security? Let's start there and then move to those other issues.
Absolutely. On the front end, there is real concern. Elon Musk himself has called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. You have Rick Scott, our own U.S. Senator, who actually filed legislation that would have required Social Security, among many other programs, to be reauthorized every 5 years. You do have Republicans, particularly in the House of Representatives, that have called to increase the retirement age. I mean, so they do not universally support Social Security. Social Security is, and especially in Florida, has been a third rail. We have the highest percentage of any state population who are on Social Security. I have 130,000 people in my district who are on Social Security, and you have to also remember there are people who get Social Security, who need Social Security, who are on Social Security disability, children who Social Security disability is a lifeline for, and so you just the devastation that would occur for millions of Americans if their Social Security benefits are jeopardized are critical. And the
But to
other
be
concern,
clear, but to be clear, there is nothing currently in legislative form that would lower benefits or raise the age. I just want to I want
right,
to sort
in
of
being
set
clear,
fears on that aside for right now.
in being clear, I can't set fears aside because the Republicans are trying to cut so much from the federal budget. It is nearly impossible for them not to touch benefits, not to touch that funding in Medicaid, in places like Social Security, without going to the mandatory benefits side of the ledger.
So
And
that takes me nicely to the next part, which is we've been hearing a lot in the news. Donald Trump keeps talking about this big, beautiful tax bill.
mhm,
And the way to get to that big, beautiful tax bill, which would provide, make the tax cuts that he had during his administration permanent and would give further tax breaks to the wealthiest individuals in the country. The way to
yes,
pay for that is that what the House and the Senate did was allocate how much money has to be cut from each of the branches or each of the silos of government, and the
that's right.
silo involving Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, the amount of cuts that they're requesting, it was at $880 billion,
880 billion.
right?
Mhm.
Out of a budget of what for that? In other words, is there any way to cut $880 billion without touching Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security?
And even the Congressional Budget Office, which is a nonpartisan objective advisor to the Congress, and outside economic analysts have said you cannot avoid touching Medicaid and healthcare benefits without and achieve those kinds of cuts at that level. It's just not possible. And on the side of the silo of the cuts that they're looking at and the tax policy that they're looking at, in the Ways and Means Committee, which is where Social Security policy is housed, they also are in a situation where it would be difficult for them to avoid touching Social Security given the requirements that they are being asked to meet under the budget that passed the House of Representatives and the Senate. So look, sounding the alarm bell now, it almost doesn't matter if it's not explicitly spelled out, Jim, because the way the bill that they will be crafting over the next several weeks is put together is so fluid, and there are so many opportunities along the way for them to make changes to meet their targets. And remember, the reason they're trying to do all of this and all of these cuts is so that they can give more and larger tax breaks to billionaires and millionaires and the wealthy.
So one of the things that has been talked about is the notion of everyone on Social Security will have to go into an office to re-sign or to sign up for Social Security to verify their identity because Elon Musk has claimed that there is widespread fraud and that
Right.
180-year-old people are getting paid Social Security and all these other claims. Will individuals on Social Security be required to go into an office physically to sign up?
They are already requiring people to do that. That is a policy change that Trump already made. And so there are millions of people now who have to go into an office physically. Offices that they are closing. And on top of that, they are firing staff in the call centers. Well, there's a call center in Plantation in my district, and they're firing that they've lost a third of their employees in the call center due to the buyout that they've offered twice and retirements. And so it's what happens is people wait on the phone for hours. Doge has rummaged around in the Social Security computer backbone, for lack of a better term, the computer infrastructure, technological infrastructure. So it's making it harder for the call center system to actually get people on the phone and be able to keep people on the phone. And on top of that, closing offices, you have people who are required to go into an office, but yet now they might have to drive 2 hours to get to the closest Social Security office. So
Just to be clear, my understanding is none of the offices in South Florida, though, have closed. They've taken cuts
so
in
far,
terms of their staffing levels, but the only Social Security office I'm aware of that's slated for closure, I think it will close this week, is in Northern Florida, correct?
right. So that there have not been offices closed, but you have a third of the employees in the call center who are gone. And there were only 40. There were only 40 people there to begin with. So that means that you're going to have longer wait time. We already have longer wait times to get someone on the phone. And then on top of that, more people streaming into the office because they're required to see someone in person. Appointments are much more difficult to get. All this, to sum up, is designed to break Social Security through the back door so that they can point to Social Security, say that it's broken, even though it was them that broke it, and say, see, Social Security doesn't work, and we're going to have to move towards privatization. That's what
It
this is
reminds
designed
me,
to do.
it reminds me a lot of what took place with the state's unemployment system during COVID.
Exactly.
Where people couldn't sign up, they couldn't figure out the forms, nothing was working,
System
all
would
of
drop
that, and then
them.
people just stopped trying and therefore never received the benefits they were entitled to.
That's right. And you know what's worse about the situation with Social Security is that there are deadlines. If you don't meet the deadline when you qualify, particularly for Medicare, if you don't meet and remember, you sign up for Medicare through the Social Security office as well. If you don't meet the deadline, then you start having a penalty. And so if let's say you're cutting it too close to go when you have to, with the first deadline to sign up for Social Security and for Medicare, if you cut it too close and you can't get access to the office or someone on the phone to go through the process, and it takes multiple times you have multiple calls, lots of questions. If you don't sign up in time, then you have a lifetime penalty where you're actually going to get less benefits than you were entitled to.
Can you sign up either for Social Security or Medicare online, or is it only in person?
With the changes, as I understand, you can sign up online. But remember, we're dealing with senior citizens, a lot of whom don't have access to a computer. I mean, when I go to my senior centers and I talk to my seniors about the issues that are important to them, much of the concern that they express is that they're getting taken advantage of and defrauded by fraudsters through online schemes. And so if they can even figure out how to get on a computer, they need assistance. I have people in my district who've already called me and said they're 2 months, they haven't gotten their check for 2 months, and they can't get anyone on the phone to fix it. And we're having calls, many more calls, constituent calls coming into the office as a result. They are trying to break Social Security, Jim, because they have always wanted to privatize it. Republicans opposed it when it passed in the 1930s, and they've been opposed to it, have been trying to break it ever since. And now they have all the keys at their disposal to do that. So people have to fight back. They have to speak up. They have to contact their Republican representatives and urge them to make sure that they protect Social Security and don't let Musk and Doge and Trump continue, and don't let this budget process diminish the benefits further and cut the hell out of the ability for Social Security to get folks' questions answered and for them to be processed so they can get the earned benefits that they deserve.
When we come back, the new condo bill that legislators believe will bring relief to those who are struggling with higher assessments. Stay with us. Welcome back. After the Champlain Towers collapse, killing 98 people in their sleep in Surfside, the Florida legislature passed some of the strictest rules anywhere in the country to make sure buildings were being inspected, structural tests were done, and repairs would be made. The result is that tens of thousands of condo owners across the state have been hit with assessments to build up the reserves needed to make those projected repairs. Now, to be clear, these are reserve funds the condo owners should have been setting aside for years. But now, as a result, many are facing losing their homes. This week, the Florida legislature passed measures to ease some of the financial costs on condo owners. State Representative Vicki Lopez led the effort in the House.
So I think the number one key element is the ability for them to for condo associations to get a credit line in lieu of reserves. So for so many months, we've been hearing that the structural integrity reserve study, which requires you to have a, obviously start reserving, was going to increase people's monthly condo fees because it's a prospective budget tool. So it would be included in the budget, which of course would mean an increase in the budget expenditures. And now they will be able to, thanks to this law, they will be able to take their structural integrity reserve study and they can get a credit line for the exact amount that they need to have. And as long as they keep that at the same amount, they will not have to reserve, which is going to be wonderful because they'll have the money there. The credit line assures the legislature that the money will be available for any repairs that need to be made or replacements of the structural elements, and yet they won't have to be paying for it before they need it. So I think that's one of the biggest ones. We also have allowed them to take out loans for the assessments. As we know in South Florida, many of the buildings are very old, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, and many have not been maintained properly over the years. So unfortunately, there's going to come a time when they have their milestone inspection, which has to be done at 30 years, and then every 10 years thereafter, there will be repairs that need to be made. So they can use the credit line or they can take a loan out, which I think will be wonderful for as an option, right? For those that potentially don't have any reserves or are thinking of not reserving as much, right? So
let me just sort of ask a question about the loan part of it.
sure.
Is that for the association and the building as a whole, or is
Yes.
that for individual condominium owners? In other words, if I own a condo and I've lived there for 30 years and I've built up a lot of equity in my condo, and suddenly my assessment is now $20,000 that I wasn't expecting, do I take that from, is there a loan available to me, or is it for the building as a whole to be able to
No,
get the loan?
it would be the building as a whole. So, right, the condo association is the one that's saying, look, we have to incur, let's say $20 million in costs, right? So the association now has the power to go and get a loan with the vote, the majority vote of the owners. And then they can, they can say, so each person, each unit's proportionate share. And some of them already do this. Some of them have done it by square footage, but let's just say that then they will say to everyone, here's your proportionate share. In Miami-Dade County, the good thing has been that we have an interest-free loan for those that make up to 140% area median income that's interest-free. So a lot of people, over 800 people, have already taken advantage of that interest-free loan up to $50,000. So it can go either way. Look, I mean, there are some people that will be able to have the option of getting their own personal loan because they have so much equity in their unit, and they might be able to say to the association, look, I'm willing to take my own loan out. I have better loan terms, and I'll pay it, right? But for the association, it now has this option that for those that cannot pay, it can take the loan out.
I also know that the bill changed from 3-story buildings needing this report to 3 habitable floors, meaning I guess garages would not be counted. Why did that change?
So in Florida, believe it or not, we have, we always think condominiums are like 40-story buildings, but in fact, throughout Florida, we have condominium buildings that have a garage at the bottom, right? And then 2 stories. And it was really driving a huge financial, cost to those that really didn't need to be included. And there was so much confusion about 3 or more stories. And finally, I said, this doesn't make any sense. And I asked Senator Bradley to include that amendment, not only for the structural integrity reserve study, but for the milestone inspections. So now it has to be 3 or more habitable stories. That's going to exclude so many condominiums in Florida. So there's going to be an immediate relief for those people because, in fact, they shouldn't be included, right? It doesn't make sense. If you're really looking why we are requiring milestone inspections and structural integrity reserve studies is because we are fearful that there would be another Surfside. And those buildings that are 3 stories, they don't need the structural integrity reserve studies. That is not part of what we know as to be engineering wise, those that would be highest risk of not only falling, but of killing people. So that's a huge financial relief for those that live in those buildings that are only those would be 2 habitable stories, so they don't need to comply.
Let me just sort of take a step back for a second. The laws that were passed following the disaster at Champlain Towers. Do we get the sense? I watched some of the Senate debate, and I got the sense that there has been good that's come out of this law in a lot of ways. I mean, people have been focused on the negative aspects, the financial aspects, the pressure that it puts on condo owners and associations. But let's talk about for a second about what good has come out of that law while we're also trying to provide a relief out. Do you believe that law has been saving lives?
Actually, it's interesting because, Miami-Dade County and Broward County are the only counties in the state that have been recertifying buildings since 1997. So the other 65 counties have not. And here's what we've learned. In many of the counties, they've had to evacuate buildings that were not structurally sound. So the law of having to do milestone inspections at 30 years has already begun to save lives. There were several buildings where people had to evacuate immediately. They had to grab their belongings and go. You can well imagine after years and years and years of condominiums not being maintained properly and no one inspecting them, that this would in fact save lives. So yes, I mean, we have to see that it's a very delicate balance that we're trying to strike, Jim. You have to ensure that Surfside never happens again and that everyone living in a condominium, me included, are safe to live in them. But we also have to understand that a lot of these requirements have caused an immediate financial strain on condo owners. So this is a way of really trying to address all of them. I think this will be landmark legislation that has really been successful in striking that very delicate balance.
There's also been a fair amount of criticism towards the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, which is supposed to oversee this. I know their staffing levels are low. Their involvement has never been very strong in this area. This bill deals with that issue to some extent, doesn't it?
It does. The bill will allow now the department to actually go in and see the records, seize them. I mean, it's got a lot of enforcement provisions now that they didn't have before. And that's an important part because, if there's a complaint about a structural integrity reserve study not being done, now the department can go over and demand to see all records, all minutes. I mean, it's extensive. And I think that's going to be very helpful for condo owners because every day we find that the department doesn't have some kind of authority to regulate. So this is a third stab at making sure that they have what they need so they can respond to complaints in a timely fashion and can resolve them amicably with condo owners.
Authority is important, but staffing is also. Do they have the resources currently to be able to do the inspections or to do the oversight that they need to do?
So I happen to be the budget chair that has jurisdiction over that department. And last year we gave them an extraordinary amount of money, almost $7 million recurring, so that they could hire people. They have now, believe it or not, that bill went into effect on July 1st. It is now in April and May that they are finally hiring the last of the 64 new positions that they needed to have. So they've made a lot of progress. It takes time, but I believe that they're in a position now to be able to really respond adequately and timely.
We'll be right back after the break. Well, that's all the time we have today. If you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to contact me at jdefede@cbs.com. I do enjoy hearing from you. Thanks again for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.